The Zarthal were ruthless. For centuries, they had swept through the galaxy like a plague, crushing any race that stood in their way. They were an unstoppable force, faster, smarter, and deadlier than anything the galaxy had ever known. The Zarthal believed themselves gods, untouchable and invincible, and for the longest time they were right. Their warships were massive, dark metal behemoths that glided through space with an air of superiority. The Infernal Sovereign, the flagship of their fleet, was the largest of them all. It was a ship built for destruction, capable of obliterating entire planets with a single shot from its dread cannons. The Zarthal didn't need to conquer. They destroyed, leaving nothing but the scorched remains of civilizations too weak to stand against them. The human colonies on the far edges of the galaxy were among their latest victims. The Zarthal had watched humanity grow, watched them build their empires on distant planets, but they had always dismissed the humans as weak. Small, fragile creatures with their primitive technology and naive sense of hope. The Zarthal were gods, and humanity was nothing more than an insect to be crushed beneath their boots. They arrived in the Terran cluster without warning, a fleet of hundreds of warships descending on the human colonies. Earth was far away, on the outer rim of the galaxy, too insignificant to even be considered a target at first. But the Zarthal were bored. The galaxy had become a collection of ash and ruin under their rule, and they sought a new challenge. The first human world they attacked was Titania, a cold, rocky planet at the edge of human space. The Zarthal didn't bother with subtlety. They came in with full force, bombarding the planet with everything they had. The humans fought back with what little they had left, scraps of outdated warships and makeshift weapons. But it didn't matter. The Zarthal crushed them without hesitation, leaving the planet in ruins, its surface scorched and its cities reduced to rubble. Then they moved on to the next world, and the next. One by one, the human colonies fell. There were brief moments of resistance, pockets of brave humans who stood up, firing their weapons into the void of space, hoping to land a lucky shot. But it never mattered. The Zarthal were too strong, too fast, too ruthless. They slaughtered entire populations, leaving no survivors. Commander Varoth, the leader of the Zarthal fleet, stood on the bridge of the Infernal Sovereign, watching the destruction unfold. His eyes were cold and calculating, his mind focused only on the task at hand. His fleet had already obliterated 3 human colonies in the past month, and now Titania, the last stronghold of humanity in this sector, was falling. "All resistance is futile," Varoth said, his voice low and venomous. "Finish them." The officers at the bridge nodded, following his command. The weapons of the Infernal Sovereign powered up, its cannons glowing with deadly energy. Titania's last line of defense, a group of human warships, launched their final assault, desperate to protect their people. But their efforts were hopeless. A single blast from the Infernal Sovereign tore through the human fleet like paper, reducing their ships to flaming wrecks. "Planetary defenses are down," the officer at the sensors station reported. "We are clear to strike the surface." Varoth watched, unmoved, as the final human ships crumbled to dust. They were insignificant, and this planet would be no different than the others they had destroyed. The humans had fought valiantly, but that was all they could do? Fight. And now they would die like the rest of the weak species the Zarthal had conquered. As the countdown began, Varoth's lips curled into a cruel smile. His ships would unleash their full might, wiping out the last vestige of human resistance. This was what the Zarthal did best, destroy, and they would do so with pleasure. But as Varoth's mind was consumed with thoughts of victory, something happened. A disturbance. It was small at first, just a flicker on the outer edge of the scanners. A brief anomaly, too faint to be of any concern. The officers at the bridge barely noticed. It could have been a sensor glitch. But Varoth's instincts were sharp. He had been in battle too many times to ignore even the slightest irregularity. "What is that?" Varoth demanded, his voice turning cold. The officer at the sensors station looked up, confusion flashing across his face. I don't know, Commander. There's something out there, but it's too small to be a threat." "Impossible," Varoth snapped. "There is nothing out there. We've already wiped out all human resistance." But the officer continued to stare at the screen, his fingers trembling as he adjusted the sensors. The flicker grew larger, clearer. It wasn't a glitch. It was a ship. A single human ship. Varoth's face twisted into a sneer. A human ship, what foolishness. But the officer's expression had changed. "No, sir, this is no ordinary human ship." The human warship on the scanners was small, nothing like the massive dreadnoughts of the Zarthal fleet, but it was fast. far faster than anything the Zarthal had ever seen. It darted through space like a bolt of lightning, dodging the Zarthal's sensors and moving with a grace that seemed impossible. The readings were erratic, chaotic. This ship wasn't behaving like any human craft they had encountered. Varoth's hand clenched into a fist. His patience was wearing thin. "Destroy it," he ordered, his voice cold with contempt. But the human ship didn't flee. It didn't run. It didn't retreat. It stood its ground. And that was the first sign that something had gone terribly wrong. The Zarthal didn't understand it. For centuries they had conquered, and each victory had felt like an inevitability. No race had ever stood against them for long, and the galaxy was their playground, a canvas upon which they painted their destruction. Yet, as they stared at the small human warship on their scanners, something stirred deep within them, a feeling that was foreign to the Zarthal: doubt. Commander Varoth's eyes narrowed as the tiny dot on his screen continued to evade their sensors. The ship wasn't running or retreating. It was moving too fast, too unpredictably, like a shadow darting in and out of the darkness. The Zarthal had never seen anything like it. The idea that a single human ship could pose a threat to their might was laughable, but the commander's gut told him that this wasn't just some isolated fluke. "This ship, it's human?" Varoth asked, his voice laced with a dangerous calm. "Yes, Commander," the officer at the sensors station replied, still trying to make sense of the readings. "It's not supposed to be possible, but it is." Varoth didn't respond. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. He had heard the whispers, of course. The stories, the rumors, tales of a human ship so powerful, so fast, that no one had ever been able to catch it. Some even claimed it was a myth, a weapon lost to history, a relic of a long-forgotten time. "Sir," the officer spoke again, this time with a tinge of panic in his voice. It's coming toward us, fast." Varoth's expression hardened. "Get all units ready," he ordered sharply. "Lock onto that ship and destroy it, full firepower." The Infernal Sovereign and the other ships in the fleet turned in unison, aiming their weapons at the tiny, elusive human craft. The battle was already decided, or so the Zarthal thought. There was no way this ship could stand against them. No way that this small human vessel, which seemed more like a blip on their radar than a real threat, could even scratch their might. "Firing," the officer on the weapons console called out. A deafening roar filled the command center as the Infernal Sovereign unleashed its massive cannons. A bolt of raw, destructive energy shot out toward the human ship. The impact would be catastrophic. The Zarthal had no doubt. But in the instant before the blast made contact, the human ship seemed to vanish. No explosion, no wreckage, it was simply gone like it had never been there. Varoth's heart skipped a beat. He blinked, confused, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just happened. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. The officer at the sensor station's fingers were moving frantically over the controls. I don't know, Commander, it's gone, but now it's behind us. How did it?" Before the officer could finish, the ship reappeared out of nowhere, closer than ever. The human ship was now a mere few kilometers from the Infernal Sovereign, darting between the massive dreadnoughts of the Zarthal fleet like a moth weaving through a firestorm. "Fire again," Varoth shouted, his patience now a razor's edge. His claws dug into the metal of the command chair, his knuckles white. The human ship was too fast, too unpredictable. How was this possible? How could something so small be moving so quickly? Another massive volley of fire erupted from the fleet, a cascade of energy blasts streaking across the black expanse of space. This time, the human ship didn't vanish. Instead, it turned with an almost impossible speed, dodging the blasts in a perfect arc. It was almost as if the ship could anticipate the fire before it even came. Then, in a flash of light, the human ship fired. It wasn't a single shot. It was a bombardment of concentrated energy that slammed into the Infernal Sovereign's starboard side with such force that the entire ship shuddered. The shockwaves tore through the Sovereign's hull, and the impact sent the mighty vessel lurching off course. Sparks erupted across the bridge, and the officers were thrown off their feet. "Shields are failing," one of the officers cried out, clutching his station as alarms blared. "We've taken a direct hit." Varoth's mind raced as the damage reports flooded in. His flagship was barely holding together, and the human ship was still darting in and out of their firing arcs, its speed defying all reason. This wasn't a human vessel. No, this was something else. This was a weapon, a machine of death that had no place in the galaxy. With fury building in his chest, Varoth bellowed, "All units surround it, trap it." The fleet swarmed toward the human ship, their guns primed for a final, decisive strike. The humans could not escape now. There were too many of them. The Zarthal had them surrounded. Victory was within their grasp. But again, the human ship was already gone, vanishing into the blackness of space before they could land a single hit. In the blink of an eye, it was no longer in front of them, but now behind them, unleashing another volley. The Zarthal's ships were caught in the crossfire. The first ship to take a hit from the human weapon exploded into pieces, its remains scattered like confetti in space. "Damn it," Varoth shouted, slamming his fist against the control panel in frustration. The ship was impossible to catch, impossible to target. The humans were toying with them. He looked around, his mind whirling. His pride, his belief in the Zarthal's superiority was starting to shatter. Something was wrong. This human ship shouldn't be able to do this. But it was. It was mocking them, showing them how weak they truly were. "Commander," the officer at the weapons station cried out, his voice panicked. "We've lost another ship. It's too much. We can't keep up with it." Varoth's heart pounded in his chest. He had underestimated the humans. He had thought them weak, primitive. And now, as the human ship danced between the Zarthal's fleets, dodging their blasts and destroying them in the blink of an eye, Varoth realized the truth. They were not weak. Not anymore. The human ship wasn't just surviving, it was fighting back. Another explosion rocked the infernal sovereign, throwing Varoth to the ground. His mind struggled to keep up with the chaos unfolding around him. His once indomitable fleet was falling apart, and the humans had only just begun. The tides of the war were turning, and there was nothing Varoth could do to stop it. His eyes shot toward the viewscreen again. The human ship was coming back, closing in, relentless and merciless. And this time, Varoth knew there would be no escape. The humans were no longer insects to be crushed. They were predators, and the Zarthal were their prey. The infernal sovereign was in chaos. Its hull, once pristine and untouched, was now scarred with burns and deep gashes from the human ship's relentless barrage. The ship's systems were failing, its once imposing shields barely able to withstand the next incoming strike. Varoth's chest tightened as he stared at the damage reports flooding in. The situation was spiraling out of control. "Commander," an officer yelled, barely audible over the din of alarms. "We've lost our starboard engines. We can't maintain course." Varoth's breath came out in a sharp, frustrated hiss. This couldn't be happening. The Zarthal had never been so close to defeat. The Sovereign had been invincible until now. He had watched human ships crumble under the might of his fleet, their bodies torn apart like paper. But this was different. The humans weren't crumbling, they were winning. The human ship, the Earth's Fury, a name whispered in fear and reverence across the galaxy, danced between the Zarthal warships with impossible precision, its sleek silhouette barely visible as it tore through the sky like a ghost. The Zarthal had tried everything, every tactic, every weapon, and yet it was always one step ahead, dodging and countering with a deadly grace. Varoth clenched his fists, feeling a knot of anger and fear twist in his gut. This wasn't just about a battle. This was about survival. The human ship was no longer a myth. It was real, and it was tearing his fleet apart. And it wasn't just the ship, it was the humans themselves. The humans had learned, adapted, and evolved in ways the Zarthal never anticipated. They had come to the brink of extinction, and yet they stood now as the galaxy's greatest threat. "Commander, we need to retreat," one of the officers said, her voice tinged with panic. "We're losing ships faster than we can repair them if we don't pull back now." "Shut up," Varoth shouted, his voice full of rage. His eyes burned with a ferocity that surprised even him. "We do not retreat. This is our galaxy. The humans will be crushed, and they will learn that no one dares challenge the Zarthal." But even as he spoke, the harsh reality of their situation sank in. The Earth's Fury wasn't just another ship. It was a symbol of something greater, a power the Zarthal had failed to understand. The human warship had already taken down 3 of their ships, each blast from its weapons lighting up the darkness of space like a fiery sun. Varoth could feel the balance shifting. The more he fought, the more it seemed like he was losing. And then came the sound of the warning siren, the unmistakable sound that sent a chill down every officer's spine. "Incoming," someone screamed. Before Varoth could even process what was happening, the Earth's Fury struck again. This time it wasn't just a single shot. It was a volley, a barrage of laser fire that lanced through the heart of the fleet. The Zarthal warships attempted to move, to evade, but they were too slow. The human ship's weapons cut through them with terrifying efficiency. A Dreadclaw-class destroyer, one of the most advanced ships in the Zarthal fleet, disintegrated under the human fire. The explosion was so powerful it sent shockwaves through the infernal sovereign, and the screams of dying officers echoed through the ship's halls. The once proud ship was no more. Its twisted remains floated in the cold expanse of space, a reminder of the overwhelming power of the human warship. Varoth could only stare, his mind reeling. How had they gotten so strong? How had the humans managed to create something so terrifying? The human ship wasn't just attacking, it was hunting. The Earth's fury wasn't just a weapon, it was an embodiment of vengeance, a force of nature that could not be stopped. And it was coming for them. There was no escape, no negotiation, only the cold reality of their impending destruction. "Prepare for battle," Varoth barked. He was determined to fight to the bitter end. The Sovereign wasn't just a ship, it was his legacy, his pride. He would not let it fall so easily. But even as he gave the orders, something in him knew it was futile. His fleet was broken. The Earth's fury was too fast, too precise. The humans didn't fight like the Zarthal. They didn't follow the same rules. They adapted, learning from each blow, striking back with a fury that matched the very stars themselves. Another explosion shook the Sovereign, and this time, Varoth lost his footing, crashing to the floor. Sparks flew, and the lights flickered as the bridge plunged into darkness for a split second before emergency power kicked in. "Damage report," he shouted, his voice hoarse. "We've lost another section of the hull. We're venting atmosphere," the officer on the communications console replied, struggling to stay calm. "Commander, the ship is falling apart. We can't take much more of this." Varoth's heart pounded in his chest, but he refused to acknowledge the truth. The Zarthal didn't fall. They couldn't fall, not like this. But even as the words formed in his mind, the human ship struck again. This time the blast came from behind, catching the Sovereign completely off guard. The Earth's Fury's weapons slashed through the Zarthal's shields, tearing into its vital systems. The ship buckled under the assault, a massive gash opening along its starboard side. Flame and debris spewed into space, and the Sovereign's power flickered. "All hands abandon ship," Varoth screamed, his voice cracking. "Evacuate now, this is no longer a battle, it's a massacre." But it was too late. The damage was too severe. The infernal Sovereign, the pride of the Zarthal, was dying. Its massive form was slowly being torn apart, piece by the relentless fury of the humans. The battle was over. Varoth stumbled toward the escape pods, the cold truth sinking in. He had been wrong. The humans had not only survived, they had thrived. They were stronger than he had ever imagined. And now he was about to witness the fall of an empire, his empire. He looked out at the space beyond, his vision blurred by the haze of smoke and debris. The Earth's fury hovered like a dark harbinger of death, its weapons silent for now, but its message clear. The Zarthal were not the galaxy's predators anymore. They were the prey. The galaxy was changing, and the humans were the storm. Varoth's eyes hardened as he stepped into the escape pod, his mind consumed with a single thought: the war wasn't over. But the Zarthal had made one grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now humanity was coming for them. The infernal Sovereign was broken. Floating in space, its once proud form now twisted and shattered, the flagship of the Zarthal fleet drifted, helpless. Flames and smoke billowed from its massive hull, the ship's internal systems flickering in and out of life. On the bridge, the officers scrambled to escape, many of them already gone, their final moments filled with panic and fear. Varoth, leader of the Zarthal, had barely escaped with his life. The humiliation was suffocating. But it wasn't just the Sovereign that had fallen. The entire Zarthal fleet had been shattered. The human warship, the Earth's Fury, had torn through them like a storm. The sound of explosions still echoed in his mind as he floated away in his escape pod, barely able to comprehend the scale of the defeat. The Zarthal had been the galaxy's destroyers, their power unparalleled. Yet here, on the outskirts of human space, they had met something even greater. The thought consumed Varoth, gnawing at him. He had underestimated the humans, but worse still, they hadn't just been survivors. They had come for the Zarthal, prepared, organized, and relentless. They were not the weaklings Varoth had assumed, no longer the fragile species living on a distant, insignificant planet. They were a force to be reckoned with. Far above, in the cold blackness of space, the Earth's Fury floated, its weapons silent, its crew calm. The battle was over. The Zarthal fleet had been wiped out, the remnants of their ships scattered like debris across the stars. But for Captain John Harris and his crew, the victory felt empty. It wasn't over, not yet. The ship's control room was quiet, the tension thick in the air. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. Harris could feel it in his bones. The Zarthal were not like any other enemy they had faced before. They had been crushed, but the galaxy's balance had been tipped. Now every alien species would be watching. The Zarthal's defeat would send a message that the humans were not to be ignored. "They'll regroup," Harris muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "They'll learn from this." His first officer, Lieutenant Andrea Reyes, looked up from her station. "We'll be ready. They'll think twice before coming back." Harris didn't reply immediately. His eyes were fixed on the view of the shattered Sovereign, a smoking husk that seemed to float like a grim reminder of what had just transpired. The Earth's fury was a formidable weapon, yes, but it had come close to losing too many times. They had been outnumbered. The Zarthal had been relentless, superior in so many ways. But humanity had fought back and they had won. Now the galaxy had to know. Captain Reyes continued, "We've received a transmission. It's encrypted." Harris looked up sharply. "From who?" "Unknown. It's not the Zarthal." Harris hesitated, but only for a moment. "Patch it through." The screen flickered to life and a face appeared. Alien, yes, but not the cold, cruel features of the Zarthal. This was something different. The face on the screen was gray-skinned, with bright eyes that burned with intensity. The creature's mouth was tight, its expression unreadable. "I am Cathar," the alien said, his voice steady but not without a hint of awe. "Leader of the Sorin Alliance." Harris exchanged a glance with Reyes. The Sorin Alliance? He had heard of them, an ancient coalition of species, more neutral than most, known for staying out of galactic conflicts. But this time they weren't staying out. "You've destroyed the Zarthal fleet," Cathar continued, his tone slightly guarded. "That was not expected." "It wasn't for you to expect," Harris replied, his voice firm. "It was for us to do." Cathar's eyes narrowed, but not in hostility, more like respect, though it was hard to read. "The Zarthal were feared by all, but they were not invincible. Now you've proven that." "What do you want?" Harris asked bluntly. There was little patience in his voice. The battle was over, but something about this meeting made him uneasy. The galaxy was watching, but the way Cathar spoke didn't feel like an offer of congratulations. We wish to offer an alliance," Cathar said almost cautiously, "with your people." Harris froze. He had expected many things, but this was a shock. He had been prepared for war, prepared for the galaxy's reaction to their victory. But an alliance. An uneasy silence stretched between them before Harris spoke again. "You want an alliance with humanity." Cathar nodded slowly. "The Zarthal's power has been broken, and their wrath is no longer something we fear. The balance has shifted. You humans are not the small, weak species we once believed. You're fighters, survivors. You have proven that in ways none of us thought possible." Reyes stepped forward, her eyes wary. "What's your angle? You've been neutral in the past. What makes now different?" Cathar seemed to weigh his words carefully. "Because the Zarthal were not just a threat to your people. They were a threat to all of us. They were taking what they wanted when they wanted, without fear of reprisal. With them out of the way, a power vacuum will form. We cannot let it go unfilled. The galaxy will need leadership, and we believe you, Captain Harris, and your people will rise to that challenge." Harris let the words sink in. An alliance with the Sorin Alliance. He glanced at Reyes again. The implications were massive. This wasn't just a victory for humanity, it was a chance to lead, to shape the future of the galaxy. But could they handle it? "How long have you been watching us?" Harris asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. "Longer than you know," Cathar replied, his eyes gleaming. "We've watched you, humanity, as you grew from a fledgling species on Earth to the force you are now. Your ability to adapt, to fight, to push forward when all seemed lost. These are the qualities that have brought you here." Harris stood still for a long moment, considering. The weight of the decision pressed on him. This could change everything. This could be the moment humanity took its first step into galactic leadership, or it could lead them into a war they weren't ready for. "I don't know if humanity is ready for this," Harris said finally, his voice heavy, "but we'll consider it." Cathar didn't flinch. "Take your time, the galaxy will be watching." As the screen flickered off, Harris leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The Earth's fury was just one ship, one victory, but it was far from the end. They had shown the galaxy what humans could do, and now the universe was waiting. The weight of that was almost too much to bear. But humanity was no stranger to fighting the impossible, and now they were ready to fight for their place among the stars. Whatever came next, humanity was no longer invisible. They were a force to be reckoned with. The stars were quiet in the aftermath of the battle. It was an eerie calm that hung in the void of space as Captain John Harris stood on the bridge of the Earth's Fury, staring at the endless black ahead. The wreckage of the Zarthal fleet floated in space like dark debris, remnants of a once mighty power. But the silence didn't bring peace. Instead, it brought tension, a realization that the war was far from over. The galaxy had just witnessed humanity's strength, and now all eyes were on them. The Sorin Alliance had offered their hand in alliance, but Harris knew that what they wanted wasn't just peace, it was influence. Power, control. The question that gnawed at his mind was simple, yet impossible to answer. Was humanity ready to take that kind of responsibility? "Captain," said Lieutenant Andrea Reyes, breaking the silence, "we've received another transmission from the Sorin." Harris turned sharply, his eyes hardening. "Put it through." The screen flickered to life and Cathar's face appeared. This time the alien's expression was less cautious, more urgent. "Captain Harris," Cathar's voice was steady, but the weight of his words was clear. "I hope you have given our offer serious thought. The galaxy is in a delicate state and it needs leadership. The Sorin Alliance has spoken with other factions. We are ready to move forward with this partnership." Harris didn't flinch, "And if we say no?" Cathar's eyes narrowed, but there was no anger in them. Only something far more dangerous, calculation. "Then you risk being isolated, Captain. The galaxy has seen what you can do and they will want to follow or they will oppose. You will find allies, but you will also find enemies, and the Zarthal were just the beginning." "Is that a threat?" Reyes asked, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "No," Cathar replied calmly. "It is a reality. The power vacuum the Zarthal left behind will attract attention. There are factions out there, older, more dangerous, who will see humanity's rise as an opportunity to control or destroy you." Harris felt a weight press on his chest. He had known that the galaxy would never simply let them be. This was a test, one he had to pass, but how? "Why now?" he asked. "Why offer this alliance now after everything that's happened? You could have done this before. You could have helped us before we were forced to fight the Zarthal." Cathar's expression softened. "We did not know you were capable of this, Captain. We did not know you would survive the Zarthal, let alone defeat them. But now you have proven something we all thought impossible." The line went quiet for a moment. Then Cathar added, his voice just a little softer, "And that's why we believe you will be the ones to lead." Reyes turned to Harris, her eyes filled with questions. "What now, sir?" Harris stood still for a long moment, his fingers tapping against the chair's armrest. The weight of leadership, of a choice that could shape the future of the galaxy, felt heavier with each passing second. He knew that if they accepted this alliance, humanity would be thrust into a conflict they had barely begun to understand. But if they refused, well, the Sorin Alliance would likely turn against them. And there were more like the Zarthal out there. More enemies, more dangers. "We can't do it alone," he said finally. His voice was steady but filled with the weight of truth. "We need them, but we need to show the galaxy who we are, not just in battle. We need to show them we're not afraid to lead." The Earth's Fury moved through space at a steady pace, its crew working tirelessly to repair the damage sustained in the battle. Despite their victory, the toll of the conflict was clear. Many ships had been lost. The human warships that had fought alongside the Earth's Fury were either destroyed or severely damaged. And even as the ship's systems hummed with activity, the thought that lingered in Harris's mind was a dark one. Are we ready for what's coming? The message from the Sorin had been clear. The galaxy would either rally behind humanity or turn against them. But the galaxy was full of powerful factions, some of whom had watched the Zarthal fall with as much fear as respect. The Zarthal had been a threat to them all, but in their fall they had left a power vacuum. And in the dark corners of space, others were already beginning to move. Days passed in a tense silence as the Earth's Fury made its way through the outer rim. Harris received reports from various human colonies scattered throughout the galaxy. Some were eager to align with Earth, eager to join forces in the wake of the Zarthal's defeat. Others were cautious, uncertain about what this new human-led galaxy would mean. But as humanity's influence grew, so did the tension. News of the Earth's Fury's victory spread quickly, and soon rival factions began to take notice. The Sindrari, a race of aggressive conquerors, sent an encrypted message. Their words were clear: bow to us or be destroyed. Harris wasn't surprised. He had expected this. The Sindrari had always been a thorn in the side of weaker civilizations, pushing their power wherever they could. Now, with the Zarthal gone, they saw an opportunity. "We'll take them down," Reyes said, her voice low but fierce as she approached Harris on the bridge. "We can destroy them. We've done it before." "We're not the Zarthal," Harris replied, shaking his head. "We're not just about destruction. We can't just fight because we can. We fight because it's necessary." Reyes glanced at him, a sharp edge to her gaze. "Sometimes the galaxy doesn't give you a choice, Captain." Harris met her gaze. "Then we make them see why they should fear us." In the days that followed, the Earth's fury prepared for what would be humanity's first test as a galactic power. Harris knew that the Sindrari were not just a military threat. They were a test of humanity's resolve. If they couldn't stand against them, the galaxy would see them as weak, as just another species to be crushed. But Harris wasn't just going to fight. He wasn't going to fall into the same trap the Zarthal had. This was humanity's moment. They would not just fight, they would lead. As the Earth's fury approached the Sindrari fleet, the tension on the bridge was unbearable. The crew was ready, but none of them knew what was about to happen. Would the Sindrari back down? Would the galaxy see humanity as the powerful force they had proven to be? Or would they stand alone in the face of enemies too large to defeat? Captain Harris stood tall, the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. This was their moment. "Bring up the fleet," he ordered. "It's time to show them what humanity can do." And so, in the cold expanse of space, humanity's reckoning began. The stakes were higher than ever. There was no turning back. The galaxy would either stand with them or fall before them. The tension on the bridge of the Earth's fury was palpable. Every officer stood at their station, eyes fixed on the stars outside, hearts beating faster with every passing second. This was it, the moment that would decide whether humanity would lead the galaxy or be swallowed by it. Captain John Harris stood at the helm, his hands steady on the controls, but his mind racing. The Sindrari fleet was ahead, massive and imposing. They had sent their ultimatum: submit to our rule or face the consequences. It was the same thing they'd done to every civilization they'd encountered, and now they were extending their hand to humanity. But there was no submission in Harris's heart, no fear, only the cold certainty of what was at stake. The Earth's fury was not just a ship. It was a symbol of humanity's strength, of their ability to survive against impossible odds, and it wasn't just about them anymore. It was about the entire galaxy watching, waiting to see if humanity would rise to the challenge. "Captain," Lieutenant Reyes said, her voice calm but filled with the weight of what was coming. "The Sindrari are hailing us. They want to speak." Harris didn't hesitate. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and the image of a tall Sindrari commander appeared. His eyes burned with a fiery arrogance, his posture one of utter superiority. His species had taken planets by force for centuries, and he had no reason to believe humanity would be any different. "Human," the Sindrari commander sneered, "you have made a foolish mistake in challenging us. Your victory over the Zarthal means nothing. We have destroyed stronger empires than yours." Harris's gaze didn't waver. "I'm not here to talk about the Zarthal. I'm here to talk about your fleet." His voice was low, steady, filled with the same confidence he felt deep in his bones. "You have two choices: turn back or face the consequences of your actions." The Sindrari commander laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "The consequences? You would dare threaten us? You are nothing but children who have been given a weapon. You can't possibly understand what you're up against." Harris met the commander's gaze, not backing down. "You underestimate humanity. That's your first mistake." For a moment, the silence on both ends of the communication was thick with tension. The Sindrari commander's eyes narrowed, and for the first time, Harris saw a flicker of doubt behind his arrogance. "Then we shall see," the Sindrari said, his voice cold. "Prepare to be destroyed." The screen went black, and Harris's mind was already shifting into the cold, calculated mindset of a commander. The Sindrari were powerful, yes, but they were also arrogant. They had underestimated humanity before, and now they were about to learn what that truly meant. "Reyes," Harris said, his voice steady, "set us on intercept course. All weapons stand by." Reyes didn't question him. She nodded, her fingers moving swiftly across her console. The Earth's fury and the fleet of human warships behind it began to move, their engines roaring to life. The crew felt the rumble beneath their feet, and each person stood a little taller, as if they were drawing strength from the ship itself. "The Sindrari fleet is locking weapons," Reyes reported. "They're coming in hot, Captain." "Give them a taste of their own medicine," Harris replied. "Fire." The Earth's Fury's massive cannons roared to life, unleashing a wave of energy that shot across the cold expanse of space. The blast struck the leading Sindrari ship, sending it into a violent spin. Sparks erupted from its hull, and it began to break apart in slow motion as the human weaponry tore through its defenses. "Direct hit," one of the officers called out. "The Sindrari flagship is losing power." But Harris knew better than to celebrate. This was only the beginning. The Sindrari would retaliate with everything they had. The first wave of fire from the Earth's Fury was just a warning, a statement. "Brace for impact," Reyes shouted. In an instant, the Sindrari fleet fired back. Beams of bright red energy shot toward the human ships, and the Earth's Fury lurched as several blasts hit its shields. The ship groaned, the sound of metal bending under pressure filling the bridge. Alarms blared and lights flickered, but the shields held. "Shields holding steady," Reyes reported, her fingers flying over the control panel. "They're pushing back, but we're still in the fight." Harris didn't relax for a second. "Return fire, all ships target their engines, we cripple them." The Earth's Fury's guns fired again, and this time the shots found their mark. The Sindrari fleet was beginning to fracture. Ships were spinning out of control, their energy reserves burning out. The human ships moved with purpose, each shot precise, aimed to disable, not destroy. They were teaching the Sindrari a lesson about respect, about what it meant to underestimate humanity. But the Sindrari weren't done. Their ships were faster, more maneuverable. They were used to domination, and they would fight to the bitter end. The largest of the Sindrari warships, their flagship, surged forward, its weapons glowing with deadly intensity. "Watch out," an officer shouted. "The flagship's charging its main weapon." The warning came too late. A beam of concentrated energy struck the Earth's Fury directly, sending the ship into a violent spin. Harris was thrown against the command chair, the world spinning around him. The entire ship shook, and for a moment it seemed as if the battle might be lost. "Status," Harris barked, his voice low and commanding despite the pain. "We've lost auxiliary power," Reyes shouted, struggling to regain control. "But we're still in the fight. They're recharging. We have time." "We won't give them that time," Harris said, his voice hard. "All ships focus on the flagship. It's now or never." In the chaos, the Earth's Fury found its balance once more. Harris gripped the armrests of the chair, his gaze locked on the view screen. The Sindrari flagship was right there, vulnerable, its shields cracked from the earlier assault. He could feel it, a sense of destiny, a force that only humanity could summon in moments like this. "All ships fire," Harris shouted. The Earth's Fury and its fleet released a torrent of energy, a barrage of destruction that slammed into the Sindrari flagship with the full force of humanity's wrath. This time, there was no escaping it. The flagship began to break apart, its massive form disintegrating as the human firepower overwhelmed it. Harris exhaled sharply as the enemy ship exploded into a fireball of debris, but there was no time to relax. The battle was far from over. "We've won the battle," Reyes said, her voice tired but proud. "Not yet," Harris replied. "This is just the beginning." The Sindrari had been beaten, but they wouldn't stop. The galaxy wouldn't stop. The moment humanity had risen to claim its place, every faction would take notice, and they would either bend the knee or challenge humanity. And Harris knew that humanity would not just fight for their survival, they would fight to lead. The galaxy had seen what they could do. Now they would see what they would become. The victory over the Sindrari fleet was more than just a triumph in battle. It was a turning point, a declaration that humanity had arrived, not just as survivors, but as a force to be reckoned with. The Earth's Fury and its fleet were victorious, but the aftermath of the battle left the galaxy holding its breath. Humanity had proven its strength, but the consequences of that strength were just beginning to unfold. The bridge of the Earth's Fury was still, for the moment silent. Harris stood at the front, his eyes fixed on the view screen. The wreckage of the Sindrari flagship was drifting in space, a massive cloud of debris slowly dissipating. The other Sindrari ships that had fought had scattered, damaged, and retreating, but not without a final warning. "They won't be back soon, Captain," Lieutenant Reyes said, breaking the silence. "But they will be back, and next time they'll come with more." Harris nodded. He knew that, of course. The Sindrari weren't just warriors, they were conquerors. They would learn from this defeat, and next time they would come harder, faster, and with greater numbers. They weren't finished. But neither are we, Harris replied, his voice firm. Next time we will be ready. Reyes looked at him, her expression grim. You know this is more than just about the Sindrari now, don't you? We've drawn a line in the sand. The galaxy is watching. Harris turned to face her. He could feel the weight of those words settling in, heavier than any victory. I know. The Earth's fury began to move again, cruising through the vast emptiness of space toward the human colonies. The crew was tired, battered from the battle, but they held their heads high. Their victory had sent a shockwave across the galaxy. Other species would now see humanity as a true power, a force that could not be ignored. The news spread like wildfire, reaching even the deepest corners of space. The Zarthal were dead. The Sindrari had been beaten, and humanity had proven itself capable of standing toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest threats. But in the darkness of space, not everyone was celebrating. While the human ships sailed through the void, reports of other factions began to surface. The Vornak, a militaristic race of towering warlords, had begun mobilizing. The Kelver, a mysterious and ancient species known for their telepathic powers, had taken notice as well. There was a rising tide of unease, a fear that humanity's rise might tip the delicate balance of power. The Earth's fury approached the outer rim of human space, and Harris knew this was just the beginning. 1,000 possibilities ran through his mind. Allies would come, enemies would come. Humanity had to be ready for both. As they entered the orbit of a nearby colony, Harris stood before the large window on the bridge, staring at the shining blue planet below. Earth, the cradle of humanity. It was the heart of their strength, their unity. It was their beginning, and it would be their foundation as they faced whatever came next. Captain, Reyes said, her voice breaking his thoughts. We've received a message from the Sauran Alliance. Harris turned to her, his heart quickening. The Sauran Alliance had been watching. Their offer of alliance was still on the table. But after this victory, their motives were no longer so clear. Was it an alliance for peace or a calculated move for control? Patch it through, Harris said, his tone steady. The screen flickered to life and Cathar's face appeared once again. His expression was unreadable, his eyes sharp. But this time there was something different about him. There was no congratulation, no offer of partnership, just cold, calculating intent. Captain Harris, Cathar said, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable weight. You have shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of, but the Sauran Alliance will not follow you simply because you are strong. Strength alone does not command respect, it commands fear. Harris's jaw tightened. We're not here to be feared. Cathar's eyes narrowed, but his tone remained steady. Then what are you here for, Captain? To rule, to lead, or to destroy anyone who dares challenge you? Harris's response came without hesitation. To lead. We fight to protect what's ours and to ensure peace in the galaxy. We fight to make sure humanity has a future. For a long moment, Cathar didn't speak. Then he nodded slowly, his gaze piercing. Then know this, Captain, there are others who will not see your rise as a step toward peace. You will face resistance, not only from those who are afraid, but from those who want what you have. Control. Power. Harris's voice was quiet but full of resolve. Then we will show them why they should fear us. Cathar stared at him for a long time, his face unreadable. You will find no allies in those you seek to conquer. The galaxy is vast, and many would rather see you burn than rise. But your strength, it is undeniable. We will continue to observe. The transmission ended abruptly, and the screen went dark. Reyes stepped forward, her face a mask of concern. What do we do now? Harris stood still, his thoughts churning. The Sauran Alliance had offered their alliance, but it came with a warning. Power and strength would bring fear, and fear could breed resentment. Could humanity truly build a lasting peace while others watched with fear in their hearts? We show them who we are, Harris said slowly. We show them that we are not a threat unless they force us to be. We are humanity, and we will not be cowed. Reyes nodded, and if they won't listen. Harris looked out the window again, his mind filled with the knowledge that the galaxy was a dangerous place. There would be no easy path forward. The stakes were higher now. The galaxy's factions were watching. Some would join humanity in its rise, others would try to destroy it. If they won't listen, he said quietly, then we make them listen. As the Earth's fury moved toward the heart of human space, the realization hit Harris with full force. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They had proven their power, and now the galaxy would either bend to them or face the consequences. The stakes were higher than ever. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity would stand at the forefront of that change, whether the galaxy liked it or not. But no matter what came next, one thing was clear: humanity would no longer be underestimated. And the galaxy would fear them,